Welcome to Pre-Algebra, September 23rd, year of our Lord 2019. How many think the year's already going really fast?
Not really.
How many think it's still September? Oh no. All right. Chapter 2 in your Pre-Algebra textbook. You also need your notebook out though, because I need you to have a nice fresh sheet of paper. And we're like, for a second, you're going to think we're going back to kindergarten. Just for a second. For a second, you're going to think we're going back to kindergarten.
Is that good or bad?
Neither.
What page is it in our
Chapter 2. I don't have pages memorized, but 52, 53. All right. What I mean by you're going to think you're going back to kindergarten is on your nice, clean, fresh sheet of paper, somewhere near the top. You're going to make a number line. Remember in kindergarten, number line? We're learning about your counting numbers. While you're doing that, that should take like 3 seconds to make yourself a number line. Put a 0 somewhere near the middle. And while you're doing that, we have to discuss some terms, some verbiage here. The numbers we use are first called Arabic numbers. There's 10 symbols, 10 digits, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And when we talk about 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we call those whole numbers, right? In between all those whole numbers, 0, 1, and 2, we have fractions. And then, so when we include all the fractions, we go from whole numbers to, big word, we learned at the beginning of the year, any number that can be written as a fraction. Come on, somebody come on.
rational numbers?
Yes! Jane Scheller gets a prize. Rational numbers, any number that can be written as fractions rational. Therefore, there's irrational numbers. Irrational numbers are like pi. Like, it never ends. You try to do the division, and it never ends.
You don't know that yet.
That brings us to what we're talking about today, integers. Integers are when you take all of your whole numbers and their opposites. We usually say, Preston, negative numbers. But what I want you to understand is that the negative numbers are actually maybe better defined as opposites of the positive numbers. Can you commit to thinking that way? Negative 1 is the opposite of 1. Negative 2 is the opposite of 2. How far from 0 is 2? That's 2. How far from 0 is negative 2? 2. Stay with me. The negatives are actually opposite the positives. 3 is 3 units from 0. Negative 3 is 3 units from 0. So here's a new term for you. Say that phrase. Go ahead.
Absolute value.
Absolute value means the value of every number as it relates to 0. What's the value of 0?
0.
Nothing, right? What's the value of this?
1.
When we say absolute value, Sydney, the value from here to here is 1. That's easy enough to understand. When we say absolute value, the value from here to here is 1. No! 1. It's 1. Isn't it? How far is it from here to here?
1.
Isn't this, if I was a good artist and this was computerized, digitally manufactured, Is this the same distance as that? If I did it just right? So how far is something from 0, Dominic? That's its absolute value. So when you see this in the book, when we go to get started, absolute value is going to be symbolized by 2 lines on either side of the number. You staying with me here? So what's the absolute value? Absolute value is how far it is from 0. So what's the absolute value of 2? Right here. What's its absolute value? 2. What's the absolute value of negative 2?
2.
Nobody said negative 2, and that's very good because the absolute value has nothing to do with whether it's positive or negative. It's how far it is from 0. And you'll see it symbolized like this. So watch. The absolute value of 2 equals 2. The absolute value of negative 2 equals 2. It's the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You sure? No questions? Because if you get that right away, I can skippity-doo-dah right through pages 53 and 54 and even 55 and even 56. We're going to go back to those, but listen, if you understand what absolute value is, we can jump right into adding integers. Okay, adding integers sounds really easy. Adding, wow, we're going back to first. Well, now we're moving up to first grade from the number line to adding. But it's not quite as simple as that because we're going to be adding not just positive integers, but negative integers. And there are certain rules we have to abide by. Yes, Noah?
Well, I don't draw my math book. I can't remember my science. Oh, you do that all the time.
Evelyn, you probably know Noah as a nice young gentleman, but is this the first time this has happened with Noah?
No.
No, how many times?
It's
What's the cover look like on your math book?
it's still brown.
It's still brown, but it doesn't look like that.
I know.
Go get it.
Right?
Okay, okay, back here. Back here on page 57. I want you to look at page 57, and I want you to listen. Remember, if a page like 57 is going to help you, it's always there. I can continue on this number line thing and show you visually how, for instance, David, I can continue on this. Did you have a question earlier? You good? I can show you all kinds of visual aids here and show you, Bella, that 2 plus -1 is 1. Okay? And that's what they're doing on page 57. Page 57 is there. If you don't quite understand the rules for adding integers, you can go and look at that visual and say 2, start here, plus -1 takes you back to there. Everybody paying attention? So you can do that on the number line if you need to do that. I'm taking you straight to the rule. Look at all these pages we're skipping, but we're going to go back to some of them. I'm taking you straight to the rule on top page 59. It seems like the teacher's gone crazy. He's just skipped 7 pages. But a lot of times, rather than get bogged down in all the stuff in the book and the examples, it's better to, I find, that if I just jump in the water with you and we work through how to do the problems. I'll always do the first several problems with you before I just throw you. I'm not throwing you in the water. Anybody's parents just throw them in there and teach them how to swim?
Yeah.
You remember it? You actually remember it?
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of times what parents do. They just look because I mean they're there. If you go under, they're gonna save you. But you're gonna have this natural reaction instinctually. You're gonna get yourself to stay above water. Unless you're like Jaden and you still struggle with it. You're afraid of water. I'm sorry. Are you still swimming?
No.
Weren't you swimming like competitively at
Yeah.
one time? All right. Go to top page 59. Here's the rule. Ready? LP. Read this with me. You don't have to read out loud. You can add integers without using a number line by following these rules. Ready, David? If the signs are the same, some of you aren't looking at it. I don't know why. This is very important. We are now starting to do math like you've never done it before, some of you, okay? You can add integers by adding the absolute values and using that common sign. Are you paying attention? What do they mean by sign? Positive or negative? So if I'm adding two numbers, stay with me, and both numbers are positive, what the rule says is just add those two numbers and keep the sign. Notice it uses this term though, absolute value. Does that make sense? If the two numbers I'm adding together are both positive or both negative, add their absolute values together and keep the sign. Let me give you an example of what they mean. Again, you feel like you're back in first grade. 2, positive 2. By the way, if the number's positive, do I write a plus in front of it? No. It's understood that it's positive. 2 plus 2 equals?
4.
Raise your hand and be recognized. Not sure everybody knows. Lauren, 4. What's the rule say? If the two numbers have the same sign, they're both positive, add their absolute values. What's the absolute value of 2?
4.
What's the absolute value of 2?
2.
Add them together and keep the sign. The answer is positive 4. How about this? What if I had negative 2 plus negative 2? The answer to negative 2 plus negative 2. The rule says take their absolute values. What's the absolute value of negative 2? 2. Add to that the absolute value of negative 2, which is?
2.
Now wait, here's the key. The rule says add their absolute values and keep the common sign. Both of these were positive, so your answer is positive. Both of these were negative, so your answer is?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. You see how that works? Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4 because the signs were the same, so we just add those two numbers together and keep the sign. Okay? You might be getting bogged down right now because when I first did absolute value, I had 100% unanimous. Oh yeah, that makes sense. But now that we're using it in a different way, some of you are getting bogged down in language. When you're adding two integers, take their absolute values, if they're the same sign, add their absolute values together and keep that sign. Or, here's it more simplified to me. If the signs are the same, just add the numbers and keep the sign. You with me? So what's this? What's the answer? Negative 7 plus negative 9. The rule says, if the signs are the same sign, top page 59, add the absolute values, use the common sign. What's the answer, Cam? Negative 16. It's absolute value 7, absolute value 9. The signs were the same. Keep that sign. Negative 16. Who's with me? Okay. Next rule. This gets more complicated. What if the signs are different? Look, now there's 3 lines to read. What if the signs are different? Spencer, could you read what it says to do if the signs are different? Now listen, really focus here, because he's going to read this, you're going to read it with him, and when you're done reading it, you're going to go, what? Go ahead.
Subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value. Use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value.
Who totally understands that right off the bat? And if you say you do, I'm going to have to question you because you're just saying that. Who isn't quite sure what that's saying? Please be honest. Okay? Because, yeah, you're like, what? What is that language? Let's read it again together. Ready? If the signs are different, Sydney. Sid, signs were the same, signs were the same, signs were the same. What if the signs are different? Read it, Preston. You got the wrong book you were afraid to say. What if the signs are different, Mitchell? Read it. It says different signs. Top page 59, you're not even there yet? I've mentioned it like 8 times. Okay, go ahead.
Subtract the lesser absolute value.
Stop. Subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater, right? You with me? What's the absolute value of negative 7? What's the absolute value of 9?
9.
You're going to subtract
9.
7 from 9. Keep going.
The value from the greater absolute value. Use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value.
So what's the answer going to be, negative 2 or positive 2?
Positive 2.
Positive 2. Watch what happens here, Sid. We take the two absolute values. We subtract the lesser from the greater. 9 minus 7. What sign do we use? The sign of the larger one. So the answer here is positive 2. You don't have to write the positive if it's positive. Everybody got it?
Yeah.
Really?
You're already.
Okay, on page 57, if you needed a visual, it would look like this. I start out here at negative 7, right? I start out here at negative 7, and I add 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where do I end up? Positive 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But do you want to write? Do you want to have to draw a number line every time you do a problem?
Yes.
No. So you remember this rule. If the signs are the same, just add the two numbers together and keep that sign. Right? If the signs are different, find the difference. Use the sign of the larger. Let's make a mantra out of that. Ready? Don't even look at the book. Ready? If the sign, you repeat after me. If the signs are different, find the difference. Use the sign of the larger. Let's do it again, Jonathan. I like the way you put some pizzazz into that. If the signs are different, find the difference. Use the sign of the larger. Doesn't that sound simple? One more. Let me do one more example. I'll put your words. Ready? One more example. If you guys get this right, I'll be confident. Hold on, Lauren. Put in parentheses. What's the... That's silly looking parentheses, but 3 plus negative 7. Let's say that mantra again. If the signs are different, find the difference. Are the signs different?
Yes.
Okay, mentally, what's the difference between 3 and 7? 4. If the signs are different, find the difference and use the sign of the larger. So what's the answer? -4, sweetness. All right, look. Here's what we're able to do. Go back to page 55. You're going to do 9 through 16. Not yet. Yeah, that's part of it. 9 through 16, 25 through 32. This seems like a lot, but you're going to breeze through this. 9 through 16, 25 through 32. Everybody got that on page 56? And then go all the way to page, seems like a lot, but I'm telling you it's not. All the way to page 61, 2 through 11. Got it? Again, it seems like a lot, but you're going to find out that if you were paying attention, and I'm confident that you guys were all confident, you followed what was going on, you are going to do well. Lauren? Yes?
All I got was 9.
I'm writing on the board. Is it okay to erase all this? We've combined 2 lessons. Congratulations, middle school. You just did 2 lessons in one day.
Oh, great. Does that mean no homework tomorrow? I do not like that much. I might call you.
What is it, 25 to 32?
Yeah. You're the one who told us.
Yeah. Okay, hold up. We got a question. Thank you for not talking. You're already on number 25?
Seriously? You probably started
You did 9 through 16? All right.
Yes.
Told you it's going to go fast. Page 57, number 25. I'm sorry. I wrote the wrong page. 56. This is 55. This is 56. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Number 25, simplify the expression. David, what did the two bars around the negative 32 mean? You say the absolute value of negative 32. How far from 0 is negative 32, David? So it's as simple as it looks. The absolute value is 32. The absolute value is always going to be a positive number because you're just stating how far it is from 0. That's it. So number 25, the answer is 32. Wait a minute. Now I should hear a question about, what about number 26? What about number 26? This is number 25, simple enough. How far is that from 0? 32. Number 26 looks like this, though. What's the absolute value of 9?
9.
So is the answer here 9 or negative 9? It's going to be negative 9 because listen to how this reads. Ready? Not everybody's eyes are up here. You read this as the opposite of the absolute value of 9. Say that. You didn't all say it. The opposite of the absolute value of 9. LP, I can't be happy until you read this out loud with me. Ready? The opposite of the absolute value of 9. If we know the absolute value of 9 is 9, what's the opposite of 9? Remember I started the whole thing on the number line, and I said it's negative 9, but it's actually the opposite of 9? So the answer is negative 9. That's number 26. Bella.
About 32.
Okay, 32 is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Listen, read this with me. Can everybody take their eyes to 32? This is going to end up being, you guys thought it was a lot of work. You're going to be done before you even leave class. Everybody go to 32 and read it with me. Ready? You're not ready. David's doing his own thing over there. I asked him, go to 32 and read it with me. Ready? The opposite of 4. What's the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of 4? Let me simplify it for you. How many negative signs are there?
3.
Whoa, listen. Micah, you're not listening. If there's 3 negative signs, the answer is going to be negative. If they had one more negative sign, it would have changed it to positive. If it would have been the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of 4, it would have changed it back to positive 4. Moral of the story, if there's an even number of negative signs, it ends up making it positive. If there's an odd number of negative signs, ends up making it negative. Just like if there's one negative sign, negative 6. It's negative 6, right? If you go the opposite of negative 6, remember the number line? What's the opposite of negative 6? There's 2 negative signs, so it's like, now it's positive. The opposite of negative 6 is 6. So let's throw another negative sign in there. What's the opposite of negative 6? You're back to negative 6. Throw another negative sign in there. What's the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of 6? You're back to positive 6.
Oh gosh.
Opposite. You understand? So if it's an even number, it makes it positive. So that's how you figure out number 32. I got this right now, right?
Yeah.
After I wrote it on the board and forgot it was 55 and 56. So congratulations. I thought we would be able to get through adding integers. Now, hopefully you're going through this well, because tomorrow we're going to throw a curveball at you. Tomorrow we're going to talk about subtracting integers. But if you got this down and you're that's why I had you repeat after me. Listen, we're going to repeat it again. See how many you remember. Casey, please tell me you remember this. Ready? What's our mantra for the day? If the signs are the same, add those things together, keep the sign. If the signs are different, find the difference. Listen to that. If the signs are different, find the difference. One more time. If the signs are different, find the difference and keep the sign of the larger one. Technically, it's the larger absolute value. It's the larger one. One more time, Noah. If the signs are different, find the difference. Keep the sign of the larger. Yeah. That's it. I don't think anybody got a 10, but there was a 10 in the grade book. That would be a scary feeling, wouldn't it, LP? You go to the grade book on RunWeb, and your score from the test was a 10. You got to be thinking, is that a misprint?
No.
Like in tone.
I know, she was in the gym. What's your math, and I was like, I did well. And she's like, I probably did that. Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
By
By the way, Julia, Johnny, and Sawyer, your grade should be on RunWeb. What?
Hi, Julia. So for number 9, would the greater one be -6?
Are you on page 60 or 55?
55.
You're on the very first problem.
Well,
Number 9.
yes,
That's
because
okay.
I didn't. Yes.
All right, number 9 is shh. What's greater, 4 or -6? Here's my number line. 4 or -6? Which one's greater?
I feel like it's 4, but then I also think it's -6.
No, because there's no absolute value around it. Listen, Dina, if they would have put absolute value bars around the -6, guess what would be greater? The -6, the absolute value of it. But it's just 4 compared to -6. Dina, the further right on the number line, the greater the value. Unless they put those absolute value bars around it.
Can you tell, wait, never mind.
See you tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
Are we on